In this psychological horror film, we see a girl named Sumi in a mental hospital, and for some mysterious reason, she's currently suffering from shock and madness. The doctor inquires as to who she believes she is, but the girl remains silent. He even shows her images of her family and asks if she can talk about the incident that led to her confinement. However, the girl simply does not respond to his questions and just sits there with a sad expression on her face. The scene then shifts to a few days later when Sumi is eventually discharged from the mental facility. Along with her father and sister, Soo-yeon, she arrives at their isolated house beside a lake. Then, the father enters the house, but the sisters are hesitant because their mother is no longer alive. The girls do not wish to confront their stepmother, who is waiting inside the house. So they go down to a pier by the lake and relax by dipping their feet in the water and enjoying the sunrise. Sometime later, their father summons the sisters to the house. Once the girls get inside, they are greeted by their stepmother, who tries very hard to pretend that she's delighted to see them. She chastises the girls for keeping her waiting and mocks them by asking if they are feeling better after being away. However, the sisters simply ignore the woman and head to their room to the top floor. Later, Sumi begins to unpack her belongings, but she is shocked to find clothes of the same color and pattern in her closet, as if she's forbidden from wearing clothes with other colors and patterns. That evening, the entire family gathers for dinner. The mood is tense and everyone is quiet, so the stepmother breaks the silence by announcing that she is inviting the girls' uncle and aunt for dinner this weekend. However, no one appears to care about what she says, and the father gets up from the table without even finishing his dinner. Just then, Sumi expresses her displeasure with her stepmother for messing with her closet without her consent. She says she doesn't want to meet her uncle and aunt and walks upstairs. Soo-yeon also quickly follows her sister and leaves the table. After that, Sumi informs her sister that she should notify her immediately if the stepmother ever bothers her. Afterward, we see the father does not sleep with his wife and instead sleeps on a couch. After everyone falls asleep, Soo-yeon hears some noises and her bedroom door creaks open. With a female hand sneaking around it, Soo-yeon pulls the covers over her head, only to be pulled back by an invisible force. She freaks out of her mind, so she rushes to her sister's room and informs her that someone has broken into her room. Therefore, Sumi goes to her sister's room, but finds no one inside. She then goes downstairs to get some water and finds her father on the sofa. As she pulls a blanket over him, Sumi gets caught by her stepmother, who warns her not to wake him up. The two then start arguing again, after which Sumi walks away in frustration. Later, she hugs and calms Soo-yeon, promising her that she will always be there for her, and they both fall asleep. Later, Sumi has a nightmare about a bloody hand frantically pounding on the door, and on top of that, she awakens to find something creeping in her room. A woman with long black hair crawls down the floor. Then the woman notices Sumi looking at her and softly floats over the top of her head. The ghost hangs in the air while its blood trickles down her leg, and suddenly a hand appears from beneath her clothes. But just then, Sumi wakes up in absolute shock, realizing that everything she saw was just a dream. Upon waking up, the father enters Sumi's room and invites her to breakfast downstairs. When Sumi lifts the curtains, she notices a drop of blood on the bed and assumes Soo-yeon is having her period. As a result, she takes some sanitary pads from her stepmother's room and discovers that she too is on her period. Surprisingly, all three ladies in the house have their period on the same day. Afterwards, Sumi discovers various family photos that reveal their stepmother was formerly a nurse with whom her father worked. It turns out that she was also a live-in nurse for her sick mother. Soon after that, Soo-yeon arrives and the two of them go through their mother's stuff together. However, Sumi gets upset as she sees Soo-yeon's bruised hand and asks who did it. When Soo-yeon refuses to tell her, Sumi aggressively forces her to confess, but Soo-yeon frees herself from her sister's clutches and exits the room. Following this, Sumi confronts their stepmother and demands to know why she mistreated her sister, but the stepmother simply claims that it is a punishment for her nasty behavior. Furthermore, the woman informs Sumi that she's now their mother and that they will have to accept whatever happens in this house. Sumi becomes even more enraged hearing this and throws the plate on the dining table. And while they are arguing, the father overhears them, coming in to check on what is going on. He comes across Sumi crying in the corner and tries to console her, but She brushes him off and walks away. However, he follows behind her and tries to speak with her, while Sumi expresses her disgust with him for marrying that woman. That evening, the uncle and aunt arrive and the family sit down for dinner. The stepmother's hysterical while telling a story, but everyone else is silent, appearing uncomfortable around her. Furthermore, the uncle claims that he has no idea what she is talking about, which clearly upsets her. Just then, the aunt suddenly begins to cough and ends up collapsing on the floor. She starts tossing and screaming as if possessed by an evil spirit. The men try to calm her down, but she continues to outrage. Fortunately, she recovers after some time, and because she's not feeling well, the husband and wife bid their goodbyes and leave. To make matters more creepy, while on the way home, the aunt tells her husband that she saw a girl under the kitchen sink during her attack. Back at home, the stepmother is still in disbelief at what just happened. She notices the sink cabinet suddenly open and walks over to inspect it, but she finds nothing unusual. Meanwhile, a girl is seen seated close to the dining table behind her. As the stepmother gets to her feet, she notices a hair clip on the floor in front of her. With confusion, she picks it up, and just then, there's a hand on her shoulder. She immediately pulls herself free, only to find herself face to face with the girl from the dining table earlier. Later, her husband gives her some medicines to make her feel better. She then informs him that ever since the girl's return, strange things have been occurring within the house. However, the husband assures her that there's nothing to worry about, and he will look around the house. Later that night, the father discovers the dead body of his wife's pet bird in its cage. He proceeds to move it, but his wife is watching from the window. Enraged by this, she storms into Soo-yeon's room, where she sees pictures of herself with her face scratched out. She then attacks Soo-yeon and throws her into a wardrobe closet, locking her inside. Soo-yeon continues to plead, but the stepmother is unconcerned and asks her to apologize. Soo-yeon eventually apologizes to her, but the woman still refuses to let her out. Moments after, Sumi awakens from her sleep and goes to check on her sister, but she realizes Soo-yeon is missing and the room is in chaos. Then her focus shifts to the wardrobe, where she finds Soo-yeon crying out of terror. She immediately calms her sister and apologizes for not hearing her calls for help, promising that this will never happen again. On the other hand, after burying the bird's dead body, the father questions Sumi about why she keeps acting out and is making things difficult for him. Sumi, on the other hand, lashes out, telling him that it is due to her stepmother, who continues to mistreat her sister. The father is shocked and orders her to stop, but she continues to scream. Having had enough, the father informs her that Soo-yeon is no longer alive. However, Sumi doesn't believe her father and assumes he's just trying to hurt her. Meanwhile, Soo-yeon, who is still standing there, starts to cry and scream inconsolably. The next day, the father calls someone and invites them to the house tomorrow because Sumi is out of control. Meanwhile, the stepmother is shown pulling a large sack inside the home while hitting it with a stick. Sumi is awakened by the noise, and soon she finds a message from her father stating that he will return to the house in the afternoon. Sumi then hurries to find Soo-yeon and notices a blood trail on the floor. Following it, she finds the sack hauled in earlier by the stepmother. Sumi believes that it is Soo-yeon inside, but she's unable to open the bag, so Sumi walks to the kitchen to get a knife, and when she comes back, the bag has been transferred to the wardrobe closet. She then notices that her stepmother's standing behind her, preparing to burn her. The two then begin to fight, and eventually Sumi stumbles and is knocked unconscious, and as a result, her stepmother drags her to another room. Moments later, Sumi regains consciousness, and her stepmother asks what has brought them to this point. The woman reminds Sumi of a discussion they had, in which the stepmother informed her that one day Sumi would live to regret something horrible, and that no matter how hard Sumi tries, she will never be able to forget it. After that, the stepmother says that she wants to end this madness once and for all, before dropping the statue on Sumi's head. Now, when the father arrives home, he discovers Sumi unconscious on the floor with the statue in pieces around her. And when he looks at his messy house, he gets a strange feeling, but soon, the man locates his wife in the living room and starts treating her injuries. A few seconds after he leaves, the door swings open and the stepmother gets the nuts blown out of her mind. The camera then pans around to reveal the actual stepmother, who is clothed in a suit and standing in the doorway. She cries out Sumi's name, and we see her seated on the couch where the bloodied stepmother had just sat seconds before. So it turns out that Sumi has been hallucinating and acting ridiculously this entire time. She was the one who beat the sack containing the doll. It was Sumi who broke the bird's neck, and she was also the one who had been taking medications. The previous few days, as well as the conversations and incidents she had with Soo-yeon and her stepmother, were the result of her schizophrenic mind, and Soo-yeon's existence was never there from the start because she's already dead. After this, Sumi's returned to the hospital by her father and her real stepmother. Outside her room, her stepmother worriedly watches as her husband speaks with doctors and specialists. She then walks inside Sumi's room and consoles her, but as she steps up to say her goodbye, Sumi tightens her grasp on her stepmother's hand. In a panic, the woman forcibly takes her hand and flees, and after Sumi is alone, she begins to cry as she recalls all of her memories with her sister, who was treated very badly when their stepmother was present in their family. Later that evening, the stepmother arrives home all by herself. She hears an unusual noise upstairs in what was once Soo-yeon's bedroom. When she goes to investigate, she sees Soo-yeon's ghost, who is lurking in the wardrobe closet. The spirit then emerges from the closet and eventually ends the woman's life in cold blood. In the next scene, the tragic events that lead to Sumi's institutionalization are revealed through flashbacks. While their terminally ill mother was still alive, her father had an adulterous affair with their in-home nurse. This enrages the sisters, prompting their mother to end her life in Soo-yeon's bedroom closet. Seeing her mother in such a state, Soo-yeon tries to help her, but unfortunately the closet collapses on top of her. When the stepmother hears a disturbance, she checks on it only to find Soo-yeon pleading for help. Initially, she decides not to help Soo-yeon and begins to walk away, but she changes her mind halfway through and walks back to Soo-yeon's room. Just then, she encounters Sumi, who confesses her hatred for the stepmother and demands that she leave the family alone. This enrages the stepmother, who decides not to inform Sumi about her sister. She simply warns Sumi that one day, she will come to regret her actions. However, Sumi brushes past her and exits the house. She hesitates momentarily and even considers returning inside, but instead decides to take a walk, unaware of the fact that her life is about to change forever. And as the movie ends, Soo-yeon's life comes to a heart-wrenching close, having begged for her sister's help until her last breath. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.